Not through yet.
Kim just unvolunteered.
Okay, so, anyone else have any changes that they would like to make to the agenda before I mention mine?
I need to add reference on there of the attendance. I didn't see it on there.
Okay, that's one of mine. You want to do that under new business or under transit committee updates? I like it better under the updates. Okay. Elizabeth?
I guess one thing that I would say is that if it's possible, I know maps and schedules is under new business, but just to stay organized and for the public interaction, if there was a way to just have like transit master plan updates or something like that, so it ties into that's what it's about.
I'm good with that if everybody else is. Well, we'll have to, vote on it anyway. My understanding was that the maps and schedules need to be updated anyway, regardless of what we're doing with TNT. And
That would mean that we don't have, that would mean that we don't have anything on our agenda about the transit master plan.
Yeah, that got, okay, so could you restate the request?
Sure, we can either add transit master plan under unfinished business and move maps and signage to that, unless there's not any other update. But I have some other things that I have questions about, that's why I was.
Okay.
Wasn't on the agenda.
Okay, yeah, I think the only official update is the paragraph that's on the staff memo, but we can, I'll put it under, I'll add in another TMP under unfinished. And Jessica and you ladies, are you comfortable with moving the maps and schedules to that part?
To under
Under TMP
unfinished
update?
business.
Yeah,
TMP, yeah, that's fine.
okay. And Elizabeth?
Can we get, maybe this could go under the updates. Can we just get a brief update on the Google Drive that was going into effect that we talked about the last meeting? Can we just get kind of like, how is that going? Can we just touch base on that since that's being implemented?
Okay, there's very little to update on
Okay,
that.
that's what I'm just,
Hasn't done much since we
Okay.
brought it up. That's one of my things that I haven't been caught up on.
okay.
I kept saying your name because I was under the impression that we need to vote to recommend you to MMPC.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did apply for that.
Okay. And is that new business or updates? Okay, I'm gonna put it under new business. Okay. And given all the other changes, I would like to move the leadership structure discussion down to the end of the agenda. That way we can get everything else done and then discuss the leadership while we're not keeping a close eye on the time and we can have the rest of the meeting to discuss it freely. And for the sake of the new folks, we do not, if the agenda is agreed on by everyone as it's printed out and publicized, then we don't need to vote on it. But since we're suggesting changes to it, we need to vote.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Okay, do we have a volunteer to
I will.
read the public comment standards? Okay. Pass that down and you can look at it and then we'll do it first. But give them a chance to look at it while do that. Okay. Someone like to move to approve the minutes of June?
I would just note that Jeff did send me some edits that are incorporated, but were not reflected on the draft circulated. I apologize for not getting an updated version to staff, but I didn't hear anything else. If anyone had any other edits, I'm open to them now.
Okay, we need to officially move and second it before we can actually have a discussion on it.
Okay.
So do you have someone move to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Move.
Okay, second?
Second.
Good.
Second.
Second vote at the same time, okay. So any of those significant edits, or were they just
minor.
I-
Copy of this thing.
I would like to just lift one up because I want to talk about it later. It has to do with the drainage issues at the transit station. I was there last Thursday, and I'm going to be asking questions about it later in the meeting. But there's some significant drainage issues from the water gushing down from the roof.
We went over that last meeting.
Yes, but I have questions that I haven't been able to get answers to.
I have a couple corrections. The new Carmen's name is spelled a lie.
Right, Jeff got the,
And on my comment about drivers feeling having to do enough training, I would add some in there. I can't speak for all drivers, obviously. So for the sake of accuracy. I would suggest, just on the formatting, that you like indent all of that or italicize it or something to keep the quote, or that's the quote clear.
yeah, that was the Jeff, I mean, it was on my version, so I don't have anything to do with that.
Any other discussion of the June minutes? Going once, all in favor of accepting the June minutes as amended? Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? And I would like to quickly remind people that as common sense as it appears, you're required to always vote either aye or no for everything, even if you'd rather abstain. Harvey?
All right. I'm Harvey. Transit Committee meeting announcement. Welcome to the Asheville Transit Committee. We meet on the third Tuesday of the month in the municipal building from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. The Transit Committee is a volunteer citizen board designed to offer input and guidance to the Asheville Transit System and City Council. We do not set or change routes, control Asheville's transit budget, or have authority over staff, drivers, or the management company. We are a group of citizens like you who are here to ensure community concerns are taken into consideration when setting public transit policy. We welcome public input in our meetings. You are allowed to comment on any matter under consideration prior to a final vote. If you have something to say, raise your hand and the chair will recognize you. There are also 2 public comment periods, one at the start of the meeting and one at the end. Any person addressing the committee is limited to 3 minutes. However, a group may have a single spokesperson who will be allowed 10 minutes. The committee will receive written information from any individuals or groups that cannot conclude their presentations within these time limitations. If you would like to have any item discussed in more detail as part of our agenda, we ask that you speak with a member of the Transit Committee in order to have that item addressed during our next meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Your input is valuable.
So is there anyone who would like to make a public comment? No.
My name is Matthew Subley.
Okay, can you come up to the microphone, please? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Matthew Supley. First, because my father being a university professor, he always told me to start on the positive. I have noticed some new bus stops, or not new bus stops, but revamped bus stops with new shelters on them and stuff. There are bus stops that don't even have concrete pads. I feel that's important, especially like on Lester Highway at Disability Partners, you got a sign in the grass. No way somebody could wheel a wheelchair from Disability Partners building to the bus stop. Some of them have no shelters, some of them have no benches. So I think uniformity is important. I really like the ones in front of St. Joe's and at River Ridge. I'm sure there's some more other places that have 2 panels on the side, 1 panel in front. Unfortunately, the one at River Ridge has a trash can in the front. That way it's protected from bad weather and stuff. Now the clear roof makes it real Baker in the sunshine and stuff, though. Second, there needs to be a way for the security guards to communicate with the office at Transit. Beginning of the month, I had somebody kick my security dog, or my service dog. Unprovoked, other than talking with police and whatnot. This person is a belligerent person, has an extensive record. I think it's very important because the security guard was coming right at the last minute, and I assume when this individual saw the security guard, he dropped it and walked away. But I think it's important that the security guard be able to conversate with the office or the police department, especially in situations like that, because since March of 2015, there's been 3 incidences. 2 of them where drunk people came up to me and tried to start something, unprovoked. I just stand there and look. So, you know, they say they got cameras all over the place. The first 2 incidents, well, even this last one, no response. Well, like I say, the security guard, by the time this was done, I turned, he was maybe 10, 12 feet away. So I think it's very important that they be able to communicate, the security guard be able to communicate with the transit station or with the Asheville Police Department if there's a situation where it looks like there's going to be violence. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Committee members aren't supposedly allowed to respond to public comment. Staff are allowed to if they wish.
Well, actually, that would be a police event, I would think. It's an assault on the animal. So if the police are wanted, then we could request the police, and we would get the police. We wouldn't have an issue with that. But it sounds like he did talk to the police. But that's all a security guard would do as well, is to contact the police and have them intervene with the individual. That's a police action. We would not have a problem doing that if that's requested.
Okay. We might want to remember that when we get into the discussion of the weapons policy, because that brings in police interactions in general and stuff.
Okay.
Any other public comment?
Hi, I'm Diane Allen, bus operator and union president for ATU 128. I hear you mention the weapons policy. As I came in the door today, I noticed that the city property also has no weapons allowed. City property on the buses also has those signs, no weapons allowed, but they are being allowed to bring their weapons, either being a long knife, machete, to a gun. They're allowed to bring theirs. We ask that you push this no weapons policy quicker before something happens. It needs to be sooner than later. And also I have a comment about the transit master plan, but I think I'll wait till we get into that a little more. And I agree with the presence of the security guard. I don't think that this particular company and their employees are taking their job serious enough. I have witnessed myself as they just stand around, leaning up against the trash cans, and not being diligent of their jobs as well. So we need the safety for not just the riders, but for the drivers too, and everybody involved in Asheville.
I can't let you make 2 public comments when we're not voting on something, so if you want to talk about the TNP, it's now.
Well, okay, the
Now
transit,
we're voting.
okay, fine, once I got time. Transit master plan, I'm a little confused on it, especially on one route, W4. I spoke with LaShawn. I think we're going to run out there and see the actual direction it's planning on going. It's not the intended plan that we had talked about originally. The original plan was going further out Lester Highway and then coming around beside Ingalls and staying away from the school area, because going around the school area will not only hurt our OTP, but it also puts us in unsafe conditions because of the heavy traffic. With students, there's no sidewalks. There's just nowhere out there to put a bus stop, to be quite honest. There's no shoulder at all to work with, and I'm sure we'll get into that later. I like to talk about the electric buses as well. I'm glad y'all not going to order any more, as far as I understand, because driving these things are almost impossible. Thanks for the pedal adjusters, but the pedal adjusters don't do their job. Actually, it created more unsafe driving conditions for us. From accelerating to braking, we actually had to lift our foot up. I'm not sure the inches on it, but it's quite a bit, and we're still having to drive flat-footed. So the acceleration was no change, only it lifted it to us, and it lifted the brake, which increases your stopping distance of braking. So you got to pick your foot up, so you're adding time to that. So that is really unsafe, and I'm not sure what else they can do about that, but it's definitely something to look into. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you timed it perfectly. Any other public comment? Okay, for those who did not speak, if you're still here at the end of the meeting, you'll have another chance then. Okay. Rider experience riding transit. Do you want to start at Harvey's end or at Kim's end?
I'll go ahead. All right. I'd like to start off at Patton Avenue, the first bus stop after you come across the bridge. You can't see it. The first bus stop after the bridge on Patton Avenue. You can't see it at all. The hedges have it. I meant to say that a couple months ago, but the hedges, they're just all over the place. You can't see the bus stop.
The hedge is all over it?
And tree like the limbs, they need to get those saplings out of the way right there, because they're getting to be nice sized trees in the way. And next I'd like to say something about the 10th of July at 2:50 p.m., bus number 0406. The driver needs to instruct the people more to sit in the available seats, because there were plenty of seats on the bus on that day. And some of the individuals, they just like to stand right there and talk. So if you look at the camera on that bus on that day at that time, you'll see that. And the one guy, he never took a seat. He always stood behind the driver. And I say, check the drivers. And then also on that day, I found a book of tickets. But I went ahead and I gave it to the driver. I gave the people on the bus the opportunity to claim them. So it was like 4 of them said, yeah, they mine. so I said, I'll give them to the driver. Yes. I would also like to give some big props. I don't know who this little lady is on Patton Avenue, but the bus stop right there where you go in that grocery store right there. That little lady, she was out there with a bottle of Clorox and a mop cleaning up the bus stop now. I gave her big props that day. I mean, she was at it. I don't know who she was, but that makes the second time I saw her out there cleaning up that particular bus stop. And then the little lady at the Walmart, she's always there getting the carts out of people's way, cleaning up trash. And she got to be at least 75. And the lady on Patton Avenue, she's like she's in her 40s. And but they do it constantly. I'd like to give big ups to Jessica. I'd like to give big ups to Barry. I was taking me a trip to Connecticut, so I had to go out to the airport and see where get on and get off at. So I got me a ride out there to WNC. Lord have mercy, they repaved my pavement down there. It looks so pretty. I love that. I thank you nobody fall and break their neck now. I thank y'all for that. And also, I would like to give a shout out to these drivers. They take time out to talk to people. I get kind of emotional. But anyway, they do it on their own time, and I see them sometime after work. But Charlene, Crystal, Joe, Pretty, Dark Chocolate, Diane, Tammy, Heather, Dee, and Can't Get Right. Everybody knows who he is. That's a joke with the drivers. Barry, quit laughing with the show. Albert, Tina, and Anthony, they're the best people I know. And I give big ups to the people that work with the Transit Authority. Thank you. I'm glad to be a part of it.
I want to make sure I know which stop that is that the brush is covering. I got all that other written down, but the first one you mentioned,
At Patton
coming
Avenue?
across the bridge.
Yeah, Cause it's got that, that shopping center where Pizza Hut used to be.
Region Park?
Yeah, it used to be a Pizza Hut right there
Okay.
on the right. As soon as you turn into the colonnade right in that little shopping center.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's,
All right.
that's where it's at, right after you go past it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to share that I was sitting on the bus. The bus had got there about 7 minutes before time to leave at the top of the hour. And I don't know if the young man seen me. I don't think he seen me. He was so busy trying to do what he was trying to do. And he got on the bus. He opened the door. You know, they close the doors when they get out to go down to do whatever they're going to do, the bus drivers. He opened the door, got on the bus, snatched off half of the transfers, got back off the bus, and closed the door. I never did see him give them to anybody, but I mentioned it to the bus driver, and she let him know that they had him on camera. But he was so busy doing his thing, I don't think he recognized I was sitting there. You know how the buses with the 3 seats when you first get on, and then you have the end bus. I was on the end bus. And I said, he must didn't see me. No way, you know, so to bring that up to say this is maybe the bus drivers should take their transfers with them. I know some of them do. A couple, 3 of them that do take their transfers with them, because that's how a lot of them get on the bus without paying. They take the transfers, or they steal the transfers, or they save them and they pick them up off the floor, you know, whatever. But some of it can be controlled, especially the part of them just snatching them off the thing. And another thing is too, the drive fast, the driving fast. I had rode with couple of 3 drivers, and they were really burning the road. One driver I was on the bus with, and I couldn't feel the wheels on it. That's how fast he was coming across the bridge over on Westgate. So I don't know have you already brought to them about the smart drive?
We have smart drive in the buses, yes.
Because they have slowed down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed the guy that really put fear in my heart.
It made a difference.
Yeah, he's not driving like he was.
Okay, good. That, it is to change behavior that causes rough ride. You know, not always to slow down, but to be in control in those situations where there's a dip in the road, where there's a turn. The turns are especially a point that you take just a little speed off on turns. You can go otherwise, but it will help. Good. That's good to hear.
Yeah, this particular driver, he stopped and I have a habit of sitting in a certain seat where that arm comes down and I hold on there. And if I hadn't been holding on, I would have been over. I would have toppled over when he stopped on the brakes. So yeah, that was a good, awesome, smart move to do that, smart drive, because a lot of times they get nervous. You know, when you're doing a new job, you want to do your best. And getting there on time, being able to and some of them just drive like they drive a car. And I'm like, man, you can't drive like that. But this individual, well, it was 3 of them, have slowed down.
Good. That's good to hear.
And I want to also share that the transit art station, people actually feel safe. That's why you have a lot of people sleeping there, because they feel safe, the homies, they feel safe to go to sleep on the bench. So a lot of times it's an insult for them to say, you can't sleep, you got to get up. But a lot of people feel safe at the art station. And in a way, that's a good thing, but then it's not either.
So I want to follow up on something I reported last month. I reported about a neighbor of mine who was sitting at a bus stop with his wife, and the bus driver went straight by. He called, left detailed message, and I reported that here. 2 weeks later, he had heard nothing, so I followed up with Jessica, who followed up with Barry, and so I understand there is now a phone line that is seldom checked. So I need to get clarity, because apparently his concern that he expressed was on a phone line that's not checked often, and it seems to me that needs to be remedied.
Just push the right button. The 2 line is the complaint line, and you can definitely leave a message. It gets checked all the time.
And what's the other line?
Well, I believe if you punch 4 and nobody answers in dispatch, it goes to a voicemail that doesn't flag as a voicemail. We don't check it because it's the dispatch direct line. So It's never checked. And that's where he left his voicemail, because the dispatcher didn't pick up the line, and it wasn't on the complaint line.
Right.
So if someone has a complaint, and I was going to suggest here too, when you all do see things that are occurring, I have no problem with you calling our complaint line.
Right.
Because if you do that, it gets in the hopper. We start checking now. We can pull video. We can interview the driver. It's all fresh in everybody's mind.
Right.
It's what we expect our customers to do, and you are all customers as well. So it just gets you in the hopper and gets it working quicker.
So what feedback I want to offer is a voicemail, a message box that's never checked, seems to me is to be ripe for problems. Whether it can be disabled so that you can't leave a message there, it would make sense to me.
I'll check on that.
I would appreciate that. To follow up with this topic, I sent an email to Jessica and forwarded it to Barry about 2 times when riders were not picked up, and I left all of the details. And I am trying to understand the circumstances under which a rider would not be picked up. So these are things that I witnessed. I won't go into the details now, but my interest is learning, I will go into the details. One man was sitting at a bus stop and didn't see the bus and raised his hand as we were going by. Is that justification for not picking up a passenger? I think it's probably not. A second example is that the passenger was crossing the street in front of the bus, hoping to get on the bus, notifying the bus driver that he wanted to get on the bus. But because he wasn't at a bus stop, he was in the street, the bus driver kept going. So I asked in my email that video be checked to help me understand why these passengers should not be picked up. And along this theme, yesterday I was at a bus stop and a woman said she calls 253-5691 since April a total of 10 times about her concerns about a particular bus running late. She has left her name, voicemail, and has never received a call back. 10 times, she said, since April. So I don't know. I'm going to have more questions when we get into your reports about customer concerns, some specifics, but I'm concerned that something's not working in the complaint system. That's my rider experience today. Thank you.
Okay. I think I have found since the last meeting, first meeting that I attended, that things seem to be smoother. The thing that I have noticed, so I'm not just looking at it to see if this is okay for buses I want to be on back and forth. So that now that I'm on this committee, I kind of look around more generally, I guess. high percentage of people riding the buses are people that, they have to do it. They're not just doing it for a good time. And we've said before that, maybe by 8 o'clock or something, some of those buses just stop. And so that people who are working for $8 or $9 an hour, that a lot of them they buy an Uber or something to take them home, which is really stupid, I think.
I'm sorry, could you please speak in the microphone?
Yeah.
It's hard to hear over here.
Okay. I think the thing that I want to focus on heretofore is dealing with bus routes and timing and things like that. I once heard that people talk about mass transit and public transit as if it was the same thing. But mass transit is places where there's lots of people there, you get a bus and everything. Public transit includes that, but also, if there's one person going home from a place and the hours should be extended, actually quite a while, because that's the main customer is the people who are working late or being people that work at hotels or late night diners or restaurants or whatever, and so it doesn't work very well as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
The only thing I'd say, I haven't brought this up in a while, but and I don't know if I've brought it up since we have new staff, but I do continue to think that the stop on Patton Avenue and Louisiana Avenue when you're going west is really dangerous as a pedestrian when you get off that bus if you're trying to get on the, I guess what would be the south side of Patton. If you try it out, you'll see why, but it's just really dangerous. You have to cross twice to get over there, and it's just a parochial concern, but there may be nothing that can be done about it, but I'd like for y'all to look into it if you can. It's just a really dangerous situation as a pedestrian. I'm happy to follow up in more detail with staff about that.
I don't have anything to report this month.
I guess I want to reiterate from a more global point is when we look at the buses and routes is looking at the bike lanes and pedestrian walkways that coincide with the bus stops. Because, for example, my daughter's volunteering at the WNC Nature Center, and one of the buses stops on Swananoa River Road Tunnel. There's no sidewalk there. So even if I wanted to take the bus and walk the mile to the WNC, I couldn't because there's no sidewalk. And so I find this a lot, especially with being visually impaired. Sometimes I can't take the bus because when I get off the bus, I can't navigate because there's no sidewalk or it's dangerous. So I think this is a global issue, or an issue of kind of, because there are people that take the bike and mount on the bus, and there are people that walk away to get on the bus. So I think the integration of kind of bike lanes, pedestrian walkways, and then where the bus stops are located really needs to be looked at, because some of the bus stops are just in ridiculous places, and when you get off, it's just not safe to walk or to bike there. And that's kind of an untenable system when there's nothing around there and you have to walk or have to bike to get to places, and it's dangerous to do so. So that's another global issue. Secondly, the bus system I did ride, and the one that I would love that we would have in Asheville, and I would love to work on this, is I rode the downtown Chattanooga free bus shuttle system. We probably needed that in Asheville 5 years ago. We need it yesterday. Chattanooga's doing it before they get the big, tourist push. But it doesn't rely on city money. It's business owners and it's artisans, and it's not city funded. So I would love for us to try to do that here. I think it's very doable. It's 2 different routes, one that's on a 10-minute cycle, one's on a 5-minute cycle. It's called Cartus. Look it up. It's a phenomenal system. And then it links up with their macro system. Greenville has a similar system. So again, after writing that, I'm like, we should have that here because that would also, they run till 11 o'clock. It would also do people that are working in hotels and some of the restaurants could get around, I think, a little bit better. And that's a free system that's completely subsidized. So
Yeah,
just an idea.
The downtown shuttle is an idea that's definitely been talked about for several
Yeah.
years.
We need to
It's
do
it's
it.
a longer discussion.
Yeah.
Molly?
I just wanted to say thank you. State in Hanover the bus stop got remade a little over a month ago, and I failed to mention it in the last meeting. But there's a sidewalk put in, and it's great. So it's really accessible and delightful. And then there are a few others that I know have sprung up due to the allocating some more funds to those capital expenses. So thank you all so much. It does really help people get to the bus stop. And otherwise, no other. Everything's been running pretty smoothly.
I would just like to mention that the city's bond project has a number of sidewalks that are going to be constructed over the next few years, and you can see that on the city's web page under the bond project. And then in addition to that, we have a number of projects that the state is going to be doing regarding sidewalks as well. Sidewalks is the most expensive piece of infrastructure that you can build. It's essentially $1 million a mile, give or take. So when you think about how many places there are gaps and the budget that we have, that's part of why you see so many gaps in places with no sidewalks. But hopefully we can continue to chip away at that over time, but it's a very, very, very expensive and large effort to build sidewalks.
I want to say thank you for the new shelter at Haywood across from Ingalls, which means that a lot of my neighbors and myself, when it's raining and you're holding your groceries waiting for the bus, now have shelter. And I really enjoyed the way that the rock work was done on the side because it created a lot more seating. That's a really busy stop, so it was a good idea. And I was glad to experience service on the W2 via an electric bus. I thought that we had decided that wasn't possible, but it seems that it was. I am still concerned about a lack of due diligence on those buses, but I'm thankful that it was working on the W2. I was curious about the driver behavior and the smart driving as well. And hearing your positive feedback, George, I thought it was really good. I was concerned because 2 of the drivers, I saw a strange behavior where it was like people were nervous to accelerate appropriately to merge back into traffic. And on a Friday, when there's so much traffic, it took 40 minutes to get from the Ingalls on Haywood Road to downtown. But it was because every time we merged out of traffic for a stop, they waited for all the cars to go before they moved into the lane very slowly. And I was like, I hope that's not because people are being punished for not doing the accelerating that's needed. So I just wanted to bring that up. I've heard that there's issues with the air conditioning at the transit center. And I wasn't sure if we're waiting until the transit center updates, but it's summertime and it's hot. So we really need air conditioning at the transit center to work.
It is getting checked.
Awesome,
Yeah.
great. Okay, so I know we're going to be talking about the GPS data and the app and the issues with it, but this month I saw something totally new. So I know I better understand now if I'm using the transit app and it says that my bus is a minute away, it may say that it's a minute away for 10 to 15 minutes because it's near and maybe there's like an issue at the stop or there's a traffic issue. The new thing that I saw was it said the bus was already gone, passed, and when you look at the map, it shows like where it's moving, and then it came up from the other side. So the GPS was in advance. That boggles the mind. Unless you've got like some really wild folks that are walking around downtown with the GPS system.
Did it up another 6
That one maybe picking up another signal. I don't know. I used the same app this month when I was in Raleigh, and it was very effective. And I remember when we were testing this app, it was very effective. My concern is once we were paying for the app, it's not very effective.
We're not paying for the app.
You're not paying for the surface?
We're paying for the service. We're paying for the GPS, but it's using information that we're feeding it, but we don't pay for the app. And I don't.
Because I can use a lot of apps because it's got open data.
Right. The problem is that the data that was, well, there's lots of problems we're discovering, that the data was not updated when we switched over from NextBus to this. Or it was maybe wrong the whole time it was in NextBus as well.
So we're in the process of really scrubbing the data.
Yeah.
We think we're going to see improvements. Well, no, we know we're.
If you're scrubbing the data and the bus is running in an opposite direction than it is, then
Must have been
just
scrubbing
want
it
you to
up
know.
there.
Okay.
I don't know, honestly, I don't know how that, I don't know. how
That's
that-
weird.
Yeah, that is pretty odd.
Okay. Just a reminder to all the folks on that side of the room, the acoustics in here really don't like that leg of the table. You really need to project your voice, even if you're using the microphone, or people will not be able to hear you. Okay. New business. I want to do Elizabeth's nomination first. Do you want to explain that, or does Kim want to handle it since you're MMTC now?
So Bruce Emery has finished up his term, and that means that there is a second seat needed on the multimodal that would be the liaison from the transit committee. I'm the second person, so we need a liaison from the transit committee to multimodal. Now the way this works is that if at the August meeting of City Council, there will be a board and commission meeting, and they will hear recommendations. So they will be anticipating a recommendation from us for that seat. The only thing that may happen, because it happened when I was added, was they could add somebody that's not currently on the transit committee to that seat as the transit representative, which would put them on both the multimodal and the transit committee automatically. But I think we need to make a recommendation for the multimodal seat.
Elizabeth, did you?
Yeah.
So can I nominate you? I nominate Elizabeth? Beth?
Do we have
To
a second?
be on multimodal. This is just a formal thing that I thought was already done.
No, this is the way we need to handle it.
Okay.
So,
It's,
you're
the decision
nominating, we
isn't
have a
until
second
August.
nomination.
So,
You guys recommended.
right, I can add that the multimodal has already nominated Elizabeth to be in that role. Thank you for reminding me of that. But they don't have a recommendation from us officially.
Right.
So this is just a formality that we ought to do?
Yes,
Okay.
Okay, so, can we have a second?
I have a second.
Okay, now we can discuss it. Are there any recommendations or objections or other discussion on the point? Going once, going twice? I would just like to state for the record, I'm happy to have Elizabeth in that position. I'm not happy about the way the process works. I don't like the fact that multimodal can appoint whoever they want without us having any choice in the matter. When Kim was appointed, it worked out well for Transit Committee, but it could just as easily have gone badly. I think the fact that so much power has been taken away from Transit Committee and put in the hands of multimodal, which, despite the best efforts of some of them, does not have the same level of detailed knowledge of how the bus system affects the riders. I think that's exacerbated our problems over the years. And I'll vote for Elizabeth now, but while I'm recommending her, I'm also objecting to the process that she's going through to be nominated.
Well, we brought it to the committee two times over the last 2 months and brought all of the applications forward, and we also discussed if anyone was interested in being on the multimodal commission, and the committee decided that they didn't want to nominate anybody, that they would want them to apply for the multimodal commission and have the multimodal commission.
This is different.
Right?
Okay.
So
the
it's the
principle that
greenways and the transit committee, before I came on, they changed the rules. That's why when you look at our bylaws, it says unless there's someone appointed from the multimodal, then it can go over 11. So it was meant, after much diligent work from Just Economics and Better Buses Together and the 19 People's Agenda for Transportation Reform, the transit committee started having representation by bus riders.
Right.
And what seemed to be the response is that the council could appoint from outside the transit committee instead of from within the transit committee. And that is what I see as a potential issue.
Okay, any further discussion?
That's why I applied for it.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did.
Because I thought, when I read I thought the same thing, that we have a situation where somebody would be appointed us, because I walk and attempt to ride my little 3-year-old bike and bus, and I'm a necessity rider and disabled. I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot, because I was hoping that would happen so that the other would not happen. But you're right, I think the process is.
Okay. All in favor of recommending that multimodal and city council appoint Elizabeth Medlock to multimodal?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
So I just wanted to let everybody know, so what happens next is at the board and commission meeting, which is usually in the afternoon before the council meeting of August, that board and commission meeting is chaired by the Vice Mayor Gwen Whistler, and they will consider the recommendations from the Transit Committee and the multimodal.
Rolling stock replacement schedule.
Are we going to do maps and schedule input?
We decided to move that down to unfinished business under TNP.
You're right. I missed it, yep.
Thanks. Here, I think I'll come up here.
I don't believe the link was working on the agenda that was sent out.
No, it wasn't linked.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Working on it till the final hour. So we're gonna pull it up right now.
And I just want to tell you that this is a working document, and we're looking at several options right now. And when I say we, I mean city staff with RATP Dev staff, because I think that in the past we haven't had, close coordination and communication in terms of what types of buses we're going to purchase. And we need to make sure that we are purchasing buses that our contractor is comfortable using, our drivers are comfortable using, and our mechanics are knowledgeable about.
Before you officially start, excuse me, just like to remind anyone on the committee or off who has trouble reading the screen, please feel free to get up and get as close to it as you need to.
And we will provide this as well. So essentially what this document is an inventory of our current fleet, and then it also looks at when a particular bus is predicted to have met its useful life. Typically, a bus has a useful life of about 12 years, and I think in some cases we've obviously pushed our vehicles beyond their useful life. And that has not always, obviously, been a good thing for us. So what we need to try to do a better job at, which is challenging, is having regular replacements of our vehicles pretty much annually. So if you think about if a bus lasts 12 years, you should be replacing 1/12 of your buses every year. That would be an ideal situation. A lot of times, though, it depends on what money is available. So is the city able to take advantage of a grant opportunity? Of course, we want to do that, and occasionally I think that leads to purchasing maybe a bulk of buses at one time. The problem with that then becomes that bulk of buses ages out at about the same time and causes maintenance issues. So what we are working on right now is trying to plan out our next several years of purchases. Our fleet replacement schedule, we look out to like 2030, 2032. We look out really far, but really we're focused on like the next 3 to 4 years. We have approximately $7.1 million that we need to spend over the next few years to purchase replacement vehicles and also make sure that as we implement phases of the transit master plan that we have the vehicles that we need. So the other thing that comes into play when you're looking at fleet replacement is that we have to have a certain number of spare buses. And that's to, have extra buses on hand if there's a problem, but also to have buses that the maintenance team can rotate in and out and perform maintenance on while the other buses are out doing the driving. So FTA requires a 20% spare ratio, which for a small operation like us, that 20% of our total fleet is not very many buses. It's like 2 buses. Really, a small operation needs a larger spare ratio. And so small operations are allowed by FTA to have a higher spare ratio. And so we're looking at hopefully aiming for a spare ratio of about 30%, but that's going to kind of fluctuate year to year. So when you think about the numbers you're plugging into your fleet replacement schedule, there's different variables that you have to think about, and the spare ratio is one, and the life cycle of the buses is the other. So we are, also have several buses that are well past their useful life. We've got 2 2004 Gilligs that are basically 2 years past their useful life right now that we expect to retire soon. We've also got, let's see, how many Orions? 4 more Orions that are also past their useful life, and we would expect to retire in the semi-near future as well. Right now, so last time we met, I told you guys that we were looking at our next purchases being a combination of hybrid diesels, Gillig hybrid diesels, and potentially some cutaways. We're still looking at that, but we're also looking at, more recently, we have done some more research and found a bus that we actually took a test drive on this morning that is a normal transit bus. It's not a cutaway. It's a 30-foot bus, but it's a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little bit more maneuverable, and in some ways kind of would operate more like a cutaway, but isn't a cutaway. One of the disadvantages of the cutaways, well, there's several, but one that we've been concerned with is the accessibility for people with limited mobility. Most cutaways have you have to step up multiple steps to get into them, which is not an ideal situation. So all of this is to say is that we're looking at options, comparing them. It's not just about the money, but it's also about the usability and the operations. And we want to make sure that what we get will last a long time and doesn't adversely impact our on-time performance and all of those things. So we should be narrowing in on what we expect to purchase in the next few weeks and making sure that we get buses here and ready to use for the next phase of the Transit Master Plan. I'm happy to answer any questions. I can talk more in detail about this fleet replacement schedule, but it's pretty straightforward math in terms of when something is expected to be put out to pasture.
I'm going to start with saying that I think we can't buy any more diesel buses. The city has very specific guidelines around reducing our dependency on fossil fuels. So hybrid has to be the minimum. I'm really thankful to hear that we're testing new models because there's so many things coming on board with technology improvements. There is a company called Zenith Motors that has a huge line of electric vehicles, including ones that have electric wheelchair accessibility from the rear. And I know we can't do anything about what happened in the past, but obviously there were issues with doing due diligence before we bought the Proterras. So when the S2 message came out this week that the remainder of the service day wasn't going to continue because we didn't have enough vehicles, I wondered if we had let go of our cutaways too quickly, because I don't know what our current spare ratio is. And I think I'm also really thankful to hear that we're considering cutaways because for the next phases of the Transit Master Plan, we don't need to be buying full-size electric buses for new routes. This is a great opportunity for us to save CIP funds, and as we grow, move those smaller vehicles out. And I know that you know this, but I just wanted to explicitly express that I'm thankful for that work.
Is the link in the agenda going to work later so that we can, now that the docs finished, so we can go back and look at it properly?
Yeah.
What was the thinking of buying the diesel buses that are coming in November? What was the thinking there? Why not hybrid for those?
A few reasons. I would say one being trying to maintain a diverse fleet. So trying to have multiple types of fuel fleet. The other would be cost. And then, hybrid, I guess it's just those two really. And those were purchased a little bit before I got here.
Right.
But I think our intention is we don't really want to go all in on one thing right now. Diesel vehicles have improved significantly in terms of their emissions. So I think, and then as far as electric, we really just need to wait until there's more options for us, which there will be, obviously, but probably sooner rather than later, actually. So.
I haven't looked at it recently, but there's a memo that I believe answers your question. I think it's in our Google Drive, shared Google Drive. If not, remind me and I'll get it put up there. It was one of the purchasing memos back from when the decision was made.
Okay. And just in terms of going forward, I guess I want to express the desire that the bus replacement schedule stay ahead of the Transit Master Plan, because one of the things that we heard in advocating for the Transit Master Plan is that there weren't enough buses.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know how you do this. I mean, because by the time you get funding from City Council, it's going to take 18 months to get the bus to meet that. But you've got to buy the buses first, and I don't know how you do that magic, but
I mean, it's not hard, but I think the thing that caused some issues for us was the electric buses.
Yes,
they don't operate as one bus. So, and that's another factor when we're looking at our fleet replacement. So in our spreadsheet, we count an electric bus as a full bus, but in reality, it's maybe 2/3 of a bus or half a bus in what it can do on a daily basis.
Right.
I'm curious about that. And it just struck me today, there are people that are waiting in line for electric buses all the time. Is there any research on what it would take for us to get a different bus and sell these to a city that is ready for them while they're waiting?
And us get non-electric buses.
Whether it's hybrid or buses that operate as a full bus, but just not diesel.
I mean, that was something that we considered. But, it's a balance of, we have on our fleet right now 6 buses that are dead and dying. So I can't we looked at trying to buy used buses. Nobody sells a used bus unless it's like dead or dying.
I spent hours looking.
Yes, so have we. So what we have decided to do is put the Proteras into service because although their operational efficiency is less than to be desired, their need from trying to keep the system functioning is there. Like we needed to put them out in service. Number one, reduces the mistrips and breakdowns, but it also gives the maintenance team time to work on the dead and dying buses more.
I fully understand why we put them in there, and I also know that we couldn't send them back because we would have lost over $1 million in our funding that we wouldn't be able to replace.
Right.
But I'm saying with a little bit of planning, is it possible for staff to consider what it would mean to get buses that we need using funds from getting these buses to cities that can use them efficiently?
Yes, we are looking at that as a possibility after at least a year of having them in service. I mean, they're pretty much, once they rolled off the lot, they were depreciated. So it's possible for us to consider selling them and buying something different, and that may be something that we seriously consider in the future. It's unfortunate. The other part of it is technology is changing so quickly. Battery technology is changing, and so, is there a possibility that will change in the semi-near future or the near term to make the performance better?
Right.
Right now we're, I think, getting good performance out of them. I think Barry has to charge them midday, and that is going to, and we've had warm weather. When we have cold weather, that is going to get substantially worse.
Yeah.
And
I think the big issue with the electric, and you're right, the technology, everybody's putting time, effort, and resources into the technology, so it's theoretically going to come sooner than later. But without remote on-route charging of systems, of your buses, there isn't a bus out there running 180 miles a day.
Right,
And
I'm
all of our routes
Right.
run 250 or 230 and more.
Well, what
So-
I'm saying though is that if we could sell 2 of our electric buses, which are technically operating as 1, and for that amount afford 3 cutaway electric, fully electric, and then run them on the
But
routes
that doesn't help. Your cutaway electric has even less. It's got maybe 85-mile radius, miles. It doesn't have 300 a day miles. That's the problem.
That
with
sounds
your
like awesome due
cutaway
diligence in a
electric.
spreadsheet I'd love to see.
That's, if you look into the electric cutaway, your miles they don't have enough battery space on it to put more battery. The full-size vehicles put bigger battery on it, which get them out to 180 miles a day. But the smaller cutaway just doesn't have that capacity, and the technology is not there for it.
This
Yeah.
might be part
Keep
of a
looking.
longer conversation,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely gonna keep looking.
Yeah, the electric is and there are, and you need to, I think, maybe do some more groundwork on taking a look at pros and cons of electric and what the cost on the back end of electric is as well. There's costs associated. There's a lot of different things that aren't just diesel fuel. So take a look at that real close. I don't think your technology is there for a small operation like this yet. Doesn't mean that in the process of having a replacement schedule, that as that technology comes online and things get better, you start adding that into your replacement schedules down the road. Because that should be going on forever. That should be a living document that goes on and on and on. Okay, we got to replace 4 of the fleet in a year and a half, 2 years. What are we going to replace it with? What's out there? What's our best options? So as long as you continue this document as a living document and continue to develop it and keep using that as a thought process, how are we going to get from here to there? And has the technology come up to where we want it to be able to be functional? Because 3 electrics aren't going to do what 2 electrics do in the cutaway style. They just don't have the miles. They don't have the ability to go as far. And they're certainly not gonna haul more than 20 people, if that.
Right, but we have 4 routes right now that the cutaways are able to be used on. So I'm just thinking about a capacity issue, our CIP capacity issue, the next years of the transit master plan, and the fact that if I'm behind a diesel bus on my bike, I know exactly what the cost is on my lungs and the planet. So what are we gonna do about economic justice and mobility if the gas rates go through the roof tomorrow? I mean, there's tons of data on how much you'd save $100,000 in the lifespan of a bus by using electric versus a gas. So it's going to be a lot of work, and I'm definitely down to help keep looking for the best info.
It saves, so I feel like this is the part that got us in trouble, is when we were looking at what's the cost of an electric bus versus a diesel bus, and you look over the life cycle, it was determined that they basically equal out over the 12-year life of a bus, but didn't factor in the fact that the electric bus isn't going to go nearly as far in a day as the diesel bus. So it's really about twice as much money as a diesel bus over the life cycle, because it's not capable of doing 250, 300 miles a day like a diesel is. And so if we had lots and lots of money and we could afford it, I'm all for it. But we don't have lots and lots of money. And so having to buy, 1.5 or 2 times as many buses just so that we can have electric fleet, I don't feel like we don't even meet basic needs in our transit system. We're not on time. We don't get people to where they need to go. And I love the environment as more, probably just as much as anyone, but from a financial standpoint, it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to go all in on electric. Not right now and not yet, but I think there will be a time.
I also want to add that last month I wasn't at this meeting because I was at the Southern Environmental Law Center's day-long event on transportation and climate change. And Secretary Trogdon, from the governor's appointment to the NCDOT, had a list of the 4 cities in North Carolina that are supposed to have a fully electric fleet ASAP, and Asheville is one of them. So I think we're just going to have to keep working on the funding and push for what we need, because if gas prices spike again like they've been known to do in the past, then the diesel bus is going to be in the parking lot.
I think the answer to that is that everyone who's concerned about this and has the ability needs to do a better job of pushing the environmentalists to actually pay attention to transit issues and recognize that they're connected, so that it's not just the transit people trying to get good transit and environmentalism at the same time, but so the environmentalist people are helping us get there, because we have such a huge environmental community in this city, and they have so much influence, and they haven't been using it on our behalf, which is their behalf too, if they just realized it.
I can say that the Renewables Coalition has taken on transit as an advocacy item, and so has Sunshine, or Sunrise Movement.
Just in terms of looking at the numbers, Jessica, how many buses do we have right now in our fleet?
Oh, man.
27.
27.
27. How many will we need to effectively implement, go online January 1st?
29, is that right?
The idea, 23 if all of the
Oh,
old
the other
deadlines
ones.
are
Okay.
buried.
All right.
So you had 23
Okay.
without the dead ones.
And a year later, when we get the rest of the transit master plan, year 1 fully implemented, how many buses will we need?
2 more.
2 more. And if we are able to get year 2 implemented in year 2,
It's the same number.
I thought it was 2 more for the extension of service.
I don't double check. At max it'd be 2. But what was the next question?
and so again, I want us to be thinking about year 2. That I'm going to be advocating for year 2 is going to come online quicker than I think other people.
That's what they're putting thought into this. with.
That's what I want to see in this report, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say one thing. It would be helpful, since I don't have the time to do all this homework on my own, that as part of this, can we just do like a quick and dirty, like pros and cons of electric versus hybrid versus clean diesel, just somewhere in this document? And then also the cost of that, so you can kind of get a picture of what you're talking about. I just don't have time to sit there and research all of that myself, and I would love
Right.
for you guys to integrate that. So
Agreed.
that we can get a kind of more of a big picture of what that might look like you're talking about, Mary, about like the short-term and the long-term cost of these three different models.
Not a detailed analysis.
No,
but
just
list
a
of
real,
bullet points.
yes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think we have all that.
Also, in general, we always need documents in advance of meetings, and because it's an accessibility issue of not being able to see. So,
Yeah.
thank you for acknowledging that.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. Okay, Kim, since we missed you last month, we voluntold you to replace Bruce as giving the MMTC update.
Okay. So you want that now?
Please.
Okay. The Art Center renovations, Walter Ear from Public Works, I think it is, gave an update on that. So construction is meant to begin this fall. We have a variety of bids. It's meant to have increased office space. The bathrooms will not lock. So a couple of folks mentioned concerns about the suggestion that was given was that if we were to make both of the bathrooms family bathrooms, then they wouldn't have to be gender exclusive bathrooms. And that seemed a wise suggestion. Temporary bathrooms during construction and updates will be in trailers adjacent to where the center is. And we confirmed with Walter that the project is contracted for 151 days completion before liquidated damages. They also looked at potentially putting another bathroom at the end of the transit center, but it would cost $30,000. And
I think it was
asked about
300.
300.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. 300,000. And then I just wanted to note that Sabra has brought this up for over a year, but evidently with the updates, they might finally be able to put Wi-Fi at the transit center.
Oh, yeah, we are.
At this point, we'll believe it when we see it.
Right. It's been a year, so I just wanted to let y'all know we've been advocating for Wi-Fi.
There is new cement on the ground over
There
there.
is no cement on the ground. I think that was it. Oh, the other thing that came up, the city needs 24-hour bathroom service, and this has been seen as a good location for that. But since the bathroom access is going to be inside and the transit center is going to be locked, which it currently isn't open the entire time that we have service, that we are hopeful. I am hopeful and looking forward to the fact that we have late night transit service and that we will then maybe have later night bathroom accessibility.
That'd be wonderful.
The end.
Okay. And I'm assuming that Elizabeth will be appointed, and you guys can work out between yourselves whether you actually, who wants to be the first person making the reports. Thank you. Thomas, do you want to take it away with attendance?
Sure.
So for those who are new, we did decide last January that we had to discuss attendance every July.
July and January, I think, was the policy. So I did like a quick tabulation, did not get this in advance, so I apologize. I think the only two people that have fallen below the 75% threshold in the last 12 months are Sabra and Dana. Dana, we addressed that in the February meeting when Dana was reappointed, so I don't know that it makes sense to address it again. Otherwise, everyone else was above 75%. I mean, most folks haven't even been here in 12 months, so. So I think that means we have to discuss superintendents at the next meeting, the policy.
I think what it means is that if someone here wants, never mind, right, that's
what I
right,
wanted to do.
is that it has to be
Y'all went
discussed.
the other way, so it's automatic.
I think it's automatic for both me and Dana.
Well, yeah, that I think is not addressed, so we can Because, so I guess what I was thinking, I put this note, so Dana, we reappointed Dana to a new term, and since then Dana's been at 3 of the 4 meetings. So I guess my concern about it with Dana is that in theory, if someone falls out of compliance, it's going to take a while for them to get back into it. And I don't want this to be a thing where like you can keep bringing it up over and over. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I think this every 6 months was supposed to prevent it from being brought up over and over again. For me, the concern for
Done on
both of
anyone's
us,
motion.
right, for me, the concern for both of us is that I'm president and Dana's vice president. So if we're both not currently meeting the standard, then it needs to be discussed for both of us.
Okay. That's, yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to raise that up, you know, that there's this possibility that you can keep bringing it up over and over. And I always think in like worst case scenarios, it might be trend. But, yeah, either way.
Okay. So, Marcella, as far as keeping us on track, helping keep us on track, that needs to be on the agenda for next month.
And I think the chair is supposed to notify those folks in writing, which we
Yeah.
don't account for. That could be the chair, having the chair and all that, which is very strange. So we can change that.
I'll write myself a letter.
I don't know, I mean, it's kind of silly. That was it.
Thank you.
I'm taking pleasure in reporting my attendance.
Yeah.
So noted.
We said this back in January. It's not something no one wants to have to kick someone off, but we did have problems with not having enough butts in the seats up here because people were being absent too often. And we had to do something about that.
You are this way.
Okay. City staff, departmental updates. Anything to add to your memo?
I don't think so. We did update the, we continue to update routinely the task list for what we've got to do between now and January 5th. So you should have a snapshot of that, or you can link to a snapshot of that in your agenda. And you can continue to look at that throughout the month and see what maybe has changed from day to day. We had our kickoff meeting on Friday with the graphic designer and marketing folks from Smart Maps regarding the map stuff, and we're going to talk a little bit about that more and get some input from you guys. The Art Station renovation project is going to City Council on July 23rd for the construction contract to be approved. And the capital projects staff just finished up the second round of bus shelters, so they're going to be putting together what money we have left to spend on bus stop improvements soon. So I don't know if it'll be the next meeting, but probably the one after that, where I'm hoping we can bring you guys some options. Here, so it's great to have extra help.
Welcome.
Welcome.
So does that replace the intern that we previously had, or is that going to be in addition to a new intern coming in?
So they're separate positions, but we were only awarded an apprentice, which is better than an intern because it's full-time and someone who's graduated from school.
It is. It's just fabulous to see actually 4 people in a row here at the same time.
And one of the projects that Kayla's going to be helping us with is doing an inventory of all of our bus stops. And so we've been working with the GIS staff to get us set up for collecting data on all of our bus stops and what kinds of amenities or lack of amenities are there.
What's the schedule for that?
I don't know. Do we have a anticipated start date?
Friday.
Okay. Friday.
Does that include repair and disrepair of the bus stops?
Right, yes.
And will that report be provided to us?
We can, yeah.
I'd
It's
like-
it's really for us to get an understanding of what bus stops have, shelters, trash cans, bike racks, what the condition is generally. And we'll get photos of all the bus stops.
Could you add cigarette disposal to that list?
Sure. Yes, we can do that. Trying to think what else we included in the amenity or in the attributes.
On-street parking, whether it has an ADA, like pad. The last bus stop inventory is available online. It's on the open data portal for the city of Asheville. So I'm sure that this also will follow suit and just be public information.
Okay, thanks.
I'm a little, given how much work there is to be done in various aspects of things, I'm a little concerned about doing another bus stop inventory when the data of the previous one was only 2 years ago. But we do hear about problems with the bus stops frequently enough. And given that half the committee and all of y'all weren't here in 2017, then.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the other important thing that Eunice has pointed out is we're also going to collect information on how far bus stops are from each other, which will help us address where the bus stops are, whether it's necessary, to Elizabeth's point, the past 2 meetings, as far as figuring out our time points and, you know.
One thing I would take a look at is lighting in terms of where the neighborhood is, where are people going to be crossing the street from to get to the bus stop? Is it safe at that location for people to wait in the evening after dark?
And if there's any chance to add, I'm not sure if this is feasible, but the proximity to a crosswalk and things like that would be helpful.
The crosswalks that are actually used, because the ones that appear on the map aren't always the ones that people actually use.
I think the lighting is an important factor too, because I've been told that I could use my phone light, but not everybody has a light on their phone. But we do have those reflectors that are at the transit center that were like a test reflector. So if we understand which stops have lighting, then we would know and not have to do that double work again later.
I think lighting is one feature that they collected last time, so we'll definitely be collecting that information.
Cool.
But one thing that's been really helpful and amazing to have Kayla is cleaning up a lot of our data, because we have found errors in it, and I think that the bus stop inventory is definitely one of those data sets that's garbage in, garbage out.
What we're also looking at is the location of the bus stops in terms of safety. So whether we place it after an intersection or before the intersection.
Good.
I got one last question. A couple months ago, Greenworks had a program called Adopt a Spot that they advertised, and one of the spots that the community could adopt was the bus stops. And I adopted a couple spots downtown, but then all of a sudden I never heard from them again. Have you guys had any communication with Greenworks about that Adopt a Spot program, including the bus stops, so that citizens could actually engage in cleaning up the bus stops?
No, shocker.
Okay,
No.
so I'll get back with them. When I get back with them, I mean, it was a great idea. I think we can push it forward. I like the idea of the community
Yeah.
responsibility of that, and that was something that they had already. I think they got kind of at the city level.
Mhm.
I know that I adopted 2 spots downtown that I could walk to and tend to, and all of a sudden they told me, wait, we hit a snag, and that's the last thing I heard. But I think moving forward, that's a great idea, and they already had it identified, and actually people identified to adopt all of these spots. So.
Well,
I'll push from
that's
my end
that's
to
great.
what went on.
We would love that. I'm sure
Okay.
Barry would love that. Barry has
Any little
adopted all of
extra
this
help?
stuff.
Yeah.
It was DreamWorks, yeah.
And you let us know that.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the city staff departmental updates? No?
I just wanted to say thank you for being really consistent and providing the reasons why the routes didn't work. I appreciate that.
Operations updates. Are there any questions about the reports that were online?
Gonna have, oh. So I'm,
Well, there was yeah, you want to talk about that? There was an issue, it was the S2 yesterday, right? Was that yesterday afternoon? Where we did get in a pinch, we had a, it was awful hot in the afternoon, the heat was up, one of the buses went down with an AC issue, and really, we pulled the bus off. It was too hot.
We're trying to find every possible solution to get the route, to keep the route from going down. And I went to Barry and I told him, I'm gonna have to pull S2. And he said, well, you know, we'll pull it for now. Maybe they can get that bus in and get it fixed. So the bus came in and one of the mechanics and I was talking. So I put the I-Ride alert out. Steve right there is my hero because he got it fixed. And so I was leaving and one of the mechanics came to me and said, I got this bus for you. I said, what bus? He told me the bus that just came in. I said, no, it's not working. So me and the driver was looking at each other and we went out there and it was fixed. So I ended up changing the alert again.
And we put it back on, so it
went back on.
did not run the rest of the evening. But we are gonna run into points in time when you have fleet that should have had a little headstone put on it a year or more ago, and you're running those. You guys know. I mean, you know what we're dealing with, and we're dealing with them. And it's that volume of items that can fail is a little bigger than a normal fleet with useful life in them. Okay, and every once in a while you're going to run into. Yeah, I know we were waiting for shims for a couple of rear ends that, you know, these streets and you know what the streets are like out there. You're out there riding in the buses. They beat these buses down. And some of those components are not normally being replaced on transit vehicles, but they need to be replaced on these transit vehicles. And so you're waiting for a longer period of time to get some of that part in because it's not something that's on a normal shelf all the time. And so those are the kind of things you run into, especially with the fleet that should have been put out to pasture. So that's the kind of thing that, you know, you get one of those and then the next day you have another one that has another issue that is, and it just kind of piles up and you're doing everything you can to overnight the part, do what you can, and it just bites you. And yesterday afternoon was a time where, and I'm going to tell you, there's other days when it's coming close. That's just the situation we're in. Should you have $10,000 worth of leased buses out there to help that? I think we are close, but we feel like that's the reason we said, hey, I think we can let those go. We think we can stay on top of this. Are we going to get bit once in a while? We probably are, as in I think a round trip on the S2.
Well, I think for me, it's more than somebody getting bit. It's people not getting to work, not being able to pick up their kids. If it's the last route of the day, that's real, like, that's not just a bite. That might be somebody losing their job.
Yeah. No,
But some of the things that I had, like that, there was good communication. I appreciate that there was an alert. We put it out on the Better Buses Facebook because the community cares about getting information out. But some of these missed hours are concerning to me, like no PVA inbound, no PVA outbound.
So I'll explain that too. When the bus is running late, what we'll do for just the bus itself, we'll skip it. But we have somebody out there picking people up. We don't just not service them.
Okay.
Just
that
like yesterday.
You'll run a car up there to
with
check.
the S2, we had a supervisor out there in Kenilworth getting people that were at the stops or taking people there. So we'll have because it's not a revenue vehicle, we have to show it as missed. But we actually are out there getting people.
So a few questions. So I'm looking at the customer complaints, and I'm beginning to try to understand this document. I sent a detailed request that I think overwhelmed you a few months ago. I'm just going to ask about a couple. There was a concern about driver interaction on June the 4th, and the RATPD dev response was requested video from the incident. Will CID if complaint is valid? Two questions. What is CID?
Caution and instruct driver.
Okay. And this occurred on June the 4th, and this report is for the full month of June. I'd like to know what the result is. It's, hopefully, between the 4th of June and the 30th of June, they've made a determination. I never see written here that I looked at the video and determined X and these steps were taken. I never see that in the resolution column.
Yeah, the most we would put out there would be CID driver.
Okay, and that means simply talking to driver, right?
Well, caution and instruct the driver.
Okay.
The driver's record then is what we monitor to see if that's getting to a point that it needs.
Okay.
And at some point, I guess I'll put it this way. We'll caution and instruct a driver. There is a time when you say, okay, we're done cautioning, we're done instructing you. If you get to that point, then it'll say, it'll still say CID.
I understand.
That's what it's going to say.
I understand.
Okay. But that, we do have to deal with it that way.
So would, this says if it's valid on June the 4th, so was a determination made if it was valid, and would it be appropriate to say that we looked at the video, I've never seen it said we looked at the video and the customer's complaint was valid.
We need to be better at finishing that complaint.
Okay.
It should have CID driver or not at fault. And
I'd love to see that.
Maybe we found there's nothing to back up this complaint.
I absolutely believe that two people can see the things completely differently, and I'd love to say is that, driver did the best they could.
It's not always the case, though.
I understand. The second one I want to ask about, there was reported serious concern with driver speed on Warwick. Reminder notice has been posted about the speed limit at Warwick Road. My question is, was there any investigation done to see, was the driver speeding? Do you have the ability to do that?
Yes.
Would that be a reasonable thing to do if the customer complaint says the driver was speeding, to then go look at the data to find out was the driver speeding, and then CID? If yes, or we determine no. But that's not here.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the complaints followed all the way through.
Does it have it specifically day and time and route?
Yes.
Okay. I don't remember that one specifically, but yes, that is something we have to get better at, is closing the gap on that. We pull video, we talk to drivers.
Right.
When those complaints come in.
Okay.
If we get them in a timely fashion, it's easy to get video, it's easy to be sure we nail it down.
How long do you keep
Everybody,
videos?
it's all fresh. Well, videos are, depending on the volume of the system, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks in the bus itself.
Okay.
And if we pull a clip, then it's pulled and put on a hard drive.
Okay.
So we have it indefinitely at that point.
Okay. Next topic. So last month I mentioned that a year ago I reported serious drainage issues at the transit center. I think that data's probably been lost. I was there last Thursday when we had the downpour, and it's all exactly the same. There are 3 downspouts, and the water is gushing out of the downspouts. So the question I have, who is responsible for maintaining the downspouts at the transit center?
Well, our ATP Dev is taking on that it is part of their responsibility to fix and repair.
Okay.
They were not planned actually 2 of them were planned to be completely replaced in the rebuild of the center. So there's more than 3 overall though, isn't there? Or is there only 3 that are leaking like that?
There are 3 that were noticeably leaking when I walked by last Thursday.
Showers, yeah.
Right. There were many other gutters that were overflowing onto places only where people had to walk, only 24 inches wide. So gutters and downspouts, how can I advocate and get that resolved as quickly as possible?
We're trying to locate a person to come out and give us estimates for the gutters and downspouts.
Okay.
We are actively doing that.
All righty. My third and last item, last month I asked about power washing, and you said it's on the list. I'd like to ask when.
Well, we did a little hose down this morning, actually.
Yeah. Does that take care of all those stains? There's nasty stains.
Well, it cleaned up a lot of the urine around the building.
Okay.
A lot of that's out there. But we did get our equipment in.
Yeah.
And starting next Sunday, before service starts, we're going to have our personnel out there every Sunday when it's not freezing.
Right.
To hose it down.
Once a week then?
We're going to spend a little more concentrated time each week on certain areas and get through it. Because we need to get it done through so before service starts. So we're going to spend time. We're going to try and do it every Sunday.
I'm going to say hosing may not be as good as a power wash.
Well, I do have the equipment in the power wash now. So
okay, good.
Yeah.
And I've requested the trash can lids be cleaned as well because they just collect dirt.
Yeah,
they're always dirty. And the windows in the transit center are always smudgy and always dirty, and the windowsills are just caked grime on those. Could that be added to a weekly list?
It definitely should be. Yeah. You should hose down the outside of the building, you should squeegee down the window, wipe off the ledges, hit the inside ledges. We're looking at, with the rebuild on the transit center,
right?
The smudging from the seats. You should never have seats in a public area backed up to windows. It's a guaranteed mess.
Yeah.
So we're looking at options there, seeing if we can come up with some options. So as we go through the rebuild, that may help with that. In the meantime, it should be wiped down.
Okay, and are you committing to doing that on a weekly basis?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question, actually, or a request. So in general, I'm looking at the reports every month, and we're running like 50% on-time performance. We had about roughly 120 maintenance calls. All those calls are money. And then, with the missed trips and things like that. I think what I want to see is some kind of goal for those things moving forward. So what is an acceptable on-time? So where are we working towards with this? Because we can look at the graphs, but in a perfect system, you guys have been doing very things for a long time. So I would like to, not right now, but to think about the future, thinking about what do we really want for our on-time performance? What is the number of maintenance calls that's more workable in the system, it's not costing money?
We do have those goals, Elizabeth.
Awesome.
They're in the transit the transit management contract.
Okay.
The on-time performance goals, mechanical road call goals.
So those goals are already articulated.
Correct. And then, but further, I could add that with the renegotiation that we went through, because we're adding new service, we have increased the on-time performance goal for year 4 of the contract by a couple of percent. I can't remember if it's 72 or 74, but and we've put in a more clear on-call or mechanical road call goal and measure. So we've tried to improve some of the measures, performance measures, and tracking for those things. So in addition to new service and new staff, we've also been working with them to add more performance measures and increase goals.
Can I follow up on that? I've heard a lot about the contract renegotiation. Could you maybe just give us a quick update on that process?
Actually, we are almost at the end of our time, so if you can make it very, very quick, we do need to get onto the maps and schedules and go.
We are working on a red line version of the original contract right now that will include all of the negotiation pieces that we came to an agreement on, including the service expansion and cost, the new staff that RATP Dev is bringing on board for starting in January 2020. And also, like I just said, some of the performance measures and goals and just minor clarifications in the contract as well. So we are working actively on that with them and our attorneys and everybody. And then we will bring forward that contract for approval to the council in at their August meeting. And that way it will be executed in time for RATP Dev to begin the recruitment and hiring process.
Can we request that red line document be available for presentation at our August meeting of the Transit Committee, which will be the Tuesday before the council meets on the 4th?
Sure.
Tuesday. Great.
Thank you.
Maps and schedules.
You doing it? Go for it.
Cool. Please feel free to chime in. Oh, sorry. I think my voice is louder than it is. So we met with Smart Maps on Friday, and Smart Maps was selected, as we talked about, by a committee that, thank you, Molly, for participating in that, based on their expertise in creating transit maps. And they had a really great focus on, not sustainability, accessibility, which is something that we really want to focus on for our next iteration of maps for the Transit Master Plan. And a really big part of the conversation was moving from a schematic or abstract system map, I have some of them in case you all want to review them, to a map focused on a more geographic sense of place. So that would be including a base map of our street grid so that people can orient themselves better instead of being like, well, this is like around where the mall is. It's, you know, this is Tunnel Road. We have routes that run on Tunnel Road. It's more, I guess, based in reality. So we have some examples of what a geographic map is. I don't know what the best way of showing that.
I'm guessing that most of us are probably well aware that the graphic map we have now does not clearly tell you where you are in relation to the actual real world.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
That sort of map works great for a metro or subway system where you're automatically separated from the world, but not when you have to find walkways.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point that Kathy was really trying to drive home with us, is that, you know, it works great for a subway. When you're underground, you're not really looking at what's around you, but when you're on a bus, you can see I am clearly passing the Asheville Mall. Like, I'm clearly on the right path here. So we really wanted to get your input on, you know, is this the right direction for us to be going to a geographic style? We also talked about some other things. I know when we were talking about the agenda, the route naming, her suggestion was to move away from dedicated colors for every route because that can be confusing for folks and it limits you in what colors you can use because you're dedicating, like, the end route is that forest green color. But if you're using other green colors, then on a system map, it might be kind of hard to discern, especially for people who have issues with color blindness, just visual impairments. So I think, did I touch on it?
So she's essentially, so we have 18 routes and we have 18 different colors. But our feeling is that people don't really know their route by the color. I don't think anybody really says, like, oh, I ride the pink line. They say I ride whatever the number is.
That's right.
And when you add more routes, you have to find another color. So you start to run out of colors, and then they start to all blend together. So what she was saying is that most systems, they do use color, but it's not specific to the route. They pick about 8 to 10 colors maybe and kind of rotate their use and make sure that when two routes are close together that the color that's assigned to each one is very high contrast so that when you are looking at the system map and there's two routes close together, you can really clearly tell which one is the red and the green, and you kind of use the color wheel, so to speak, to pick contrasting colors. But you could have two routes that show up and use the same color, but they're not going to be anywhere near each other on the map. So we felt like that made a lot of sense. That would be our recommendation, as well as what Marcella said, is moving towards a geographic-based map rather than a schematic map, and providing a lot more context, because ultimately, I think everybody here knows the routes. They know their route. But if you're a new person to the city or a new person to transit, having something that really helps them navigate the city and the transit system is better.
So are you at the point in the process where you want the detailed feedback from us today, or is that something for us to be thinking about to give you later on?
I think today we kind of want to get, hopefully, concurrence that, yes, we should move to a geographic-based map. Yes, we should move to not having 18 different colors, or it will be 19 different colors and with our new map.
Everybody.
And then, but I think there's still going to be conversations about that we will want your input on about the route names themselves. So we don't have to decide right now if we want to keep everything with a letter and a number, or what the crosstowns will be called. We still have a little bit of time for that. But right now we're at this, like, the high level, what kind of map are we going to do? Because it takes a lot of effort to create the geographic map, and we don't want to have to go backwards. So we want to make sure that everybody thinks that that's the right decision.
Okay, so can we get a quick go-round? Quick, because we are running short on time. What everybody thinks about those?
I know when we were talking about the transit master plan process early on, Bruce Emery, who has a lot of transit planning experience, was explaining that, for example, if the crosstown route that goes from North Asheville to South Asheville, well, AB Tech, S4, if that was called the UNCA AB Tech route, then instead of two different directional routes, that to me was an example that was really clearly defining that if I'm on the S4 and I need to go in the direction of UNCA, I get on the UNCA AB Tech bus. So if that is helpful, is why I would support a move to a geographic map.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Geographic map, definitely. I'm not convinced about losing the colors. I like having the different colors. Yes, it's hard sometimes to see them, to tell them apart when they're close together, but it makes it a lot easier to pick the schedule you want. On the other hand, I also think we need to go back to what we used to have, where we have all the maps and schedules in one booklet, rather than having people pick out lots of different schedules. So in that case, the colors might be kind of relevant.
We talked a little bit about the route maps with her. By and large, and I should be clear, the contractor that we got, they are a transit map professional. Like, they have done at least 100 different transit maps. They're not transit experts, but they're transit map experts and knowing what is usable. I forgot where I was going with this. But part of it, that what we talked about for the route maps, is how we have, whether or not we should continue to have individual route maps. Her recommendation is yes. By and large, the vast majority have an individual route map rather than a booklet. But we did talk about how the printing costs of having a different color for each route map really increases our printing costs over time. And so most systems have moved towards, they have an individual route map for each route, but the color is the same. And I do see that how that could be potentially confusing. Essentially, you'd have to really make sure you're grabbing the right route number, and so you'd have a big number on the top. But all of them would potentially be the same color, so that we're not spending a ton of money on printing.
The problem with the individual map schedules that we've talked about before is that most people, especially necessity riders, have to take more than one route. And you can't go carrying around an inch-thick stack of schedules with you all the time. people might memorize the one for their bus stop that's closest to their home, but it's not reasonable to expect people to memorize all the routes that they have to take to get to their regular business.
Well, part of what we want to try to do is do some more public outreach on questions like this, because I think yes, I think you're right. Some people, it's better to have a booklet. Some people, it's better not to. And I don't know what the breakdown is on that.
We also talked about a in-between solution of having, rather than one big booklet, having 4 different booklets, so one for North Quadrant, one for South, one for East, one for West. And that would come in, where do we put the crosstowns in that? Maybe the crosstowns would be in all of them. But that's an option.
I think there's something else I thought about from the Multimodal Transportation Commission that we might want to make some advice on. We know that the S4 is going to get double the service starting in January. So anyone who's attending job training at Green Opportunities or setting their class schedules for AV Tech, for example, it would help them to be able to make those decisions in advance. So it got brought up at the multimodal that it would be a good idea to put signage up on the buses that is a major change that's coming up. Obviously, some of these, like if a stop is moving or Bartlett Arms having returned service, things like that might be more fine details, would probably have to come later. But I think we could advise as a group that at least the S4 should go up soon, so that when people are making those life decisions, and know that they can get to and from the S4 every day more often. If there's a way to just have, it's been really nice to ride the bus and have updated signage up top. If one of those could be, or 2 of those could be that the S4 is going to be running every half hour, I think would be helpful.
I think we can do that. We want to have just a summary of the changes that can go out widespread, like you're saying.
And then a referral to the website.
Right, and then there will be more detailed outreach for specific changes like bus stops moving too. But we should be able to pretty quickly put together something that can just be the broad overview that can go in each of the stops and up at the transit center. I
think this would be like the time to say that we should let perfect get in the way of the good. If people know that it's going to get duplicate surface, it can be really minimal.
Yeah.
Also, I'm guessing this is all going to be very accessible by phone, so the interface of, I ride the bus. I'm visually impaired, so I'm listening to my phone. I mean, the signage, I'm never going to do that. But I'm on the bus all the time. Most people have cell phones that ride the bus. So I just want to make sure that we're really aware of what the user interface looks like to go in and find the maps, and that that's really clean and updated, and just a really good user interface on that is important.
Something that I'm working on with IT/CAPE is getting individual route pages and being able to break out the schedules into their own tables, so that if you are using a reader, then it's like not trying to read a PDF. And I think that'll be really helpful. So I'm working with them now, hopefully to get that in place before January. So they're aware that that is
Not just
that is my ambitious project.
I also know that this is the same company that Raleigh used for their maps, and they have, it looks like 20, 30 routes. So they're using the names of the destinations.
We have 5 minutes to finish the meeting. So is there anything else on the maps and routes that y'all can't address with staff independently? No, go. Okay. 5 minutes is not long enough to do a proper discussion about the leadership structure. I was asked back in January to bring this up to have it on the agenda, whether we should try to go to a co-chair format or possibly look at other different types of leadership structures. Necessity riders have a lot of barriers just in getting into this room with work schedules and health issues and all sorts of other things. And that makes it even harder to take a leadership role in the committee. So the question is, do we want to readjust the leadership structure in a way that would make it easier for more people to participate? despite assorted barriers. And I think what's happened the past few months with my being absent just proves how important that discussion is. But we can't really have it in 5 minutes.
Right.
So can I get some guidance on where people would like to go with that?
That's a good discussion to have.
Is what, I mean, we have a chair and a co-chair. Is that considered?
We don't have a co-chair.
I'm sorry, we have a chair and a vice chair where, and my sense is that
In every organization I've ever been in that has a chair and a vice chair does almost nothing. The secretary is usually much more qualified to fill in for the chair when necessary, simply because the process of doing the minutes means they're constantly in the weeds of what's going on with the committee. So I'm not, as far as I see it, having a chair and a vice chair doesn't spread the leadership around at all. Co-chairs, I've seen organizations where that works well, and I've seen organizations where it doesn't. So,
I think just to say, like, for us as a staff, it's the most important thing for us is to have a dedicated person and a backup person to talk with in advance of the meeting to make sure that the agenda is ready to go. When we don't have that, it creates, and then when we don't know who's the next in line, and then having a trouble getting a hold of people really puts a stress on the staff. And so having consistent leader to communicate with us the week prior to the meeting is imperative, because if we're trying very hard to get the materials out in advance, and when we don't have someone who can go over the agenda with us, we kind of wait on that, give that person some time. Eventually, we're just going to send it up. We're going to do it on our own. Having a dedicated person that's there all the time would be great, or, the week and a half before the meeting.
Have you encountered some problems with that, or?
I've not been in touch with them properly, at least not what I consider properly the last few months.
But then we also had trouble getting a hold of the vice chair too. So it's not necessarily, I mean, we just need to have the backup and just be able to get a hold of those people, or something that says, like, if we can't get a hold of people, then it's okay for staff to just do what they need to do. I mean, we're going to do that anyways, but.
I would suggest, I'll start with gratitude. I'm very thankful that Sabra and Dana and Thomas have taken on leadership roles, because there are challenges being a transit rider and showing up and being available, but that all of us are human and need to have our times to take care of things at home and take care of ourselves. So I am not inclined, this has been on our agenda and moved around for the past 6 months. I would rather us really support really clear expectations and maybe create more backup structure of who gets called fourth and fifth than to update our bylaws, personally. I know that Marcella tried to call me that one time, and I didn't answer fast either. So my apologies.
Is it a year?
It's a year. I mean, so the term as chair is a year.
Because, I mean, there's other ways to do this. So there's faster ways to rotate leadership where you do 6-month tenure. So there's other ways to address it. Is a year too much? So I do like I think as long as, like you said, the structure is clear, the expectations and the roles are clear. I like the co-chair idea. I think that does work better. I put that into organizations. I think it does work better when you have a good working team. But then also really put on the table, things move faster now. And does it make sense to do a change every 6 months so that you do have more rotating leadership and more people able to do leadership, but still that consistency? I think you can do both.
And all I would say is if you move to a co-chair model, which is perfectly fine, I just, from the staff perspective, we don't want to have to coordinate with 2 people. Or we can coordinate with 2 people, but we don't want to have to schedule around 2 people. We just need to kind of pick a day, and this isn't the kind of thing you write in the bylaws. But I just want to say, for us, we need to say we're going to have meeting or phone call the, whatever day, 10 days in advance or something. And
For me, the important distinction in whether co-chairs work or not is you need to understand whether you're going for a redundancy model or a complementarity model, and clear lines of who's responsible for what. And that, I think, requires more discussion than we can have right now. So shall I work up sorry, my brain's turning off.
a proposal or
A proposal
option.
and bring it back next time? Yeah. Okay.
I do like, just with second Elizabeth's idea about more rapid rotation, just in terms of like getting more people involved, much as I like transcribing everything.
I think it's taxing after a while.
But
A year's a long time.
It is like, I just think there's something about, if you know you're going to be chair for 3 months or vice chair for 3 months, it's going to force people to step up to the plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know this has helped me get more involved, taking minutes and all that, so
Okay.
just
I think-
a thought.
I think we have a direction there. I will just point out real quickly that when I talk about knowing who's responsible for what, I think organizing the meetings with staff is part of that. The other big part that I have not been on the ball with, and frankly, this is not meant to be an insult or detraction from them, but simply statement of fact. I don't think the previous chairs have done a good job of this either, is keeping us moving towards our strategic goals. Where only if you would be being able to say there was a different person, one person is doing the meetings and the other person is doing strategic goals, I think that would be a really fabulous idea.
Yeah.
I like that.
And that's about changing the structure of the agenda to be able to talk about this, which is the issue I have, is I think this agenda can change some,
Yeah.
and the way we do it needs to kind of be more sustained, discussion and
Right.
topic.
And
focused
that
on
comes
it.
back to the rules of procedure, because
Yeah.
right now our order of business is set. Okay. Anyone who has further thoughts on that is welcome to email me, and I will try to pull something together for next meeting.
Guys, we got a lot to still.
We're almost out.
We can lock that door.
I gotta wait till you leave.
Well,
Oh,
our
you
meeting
lock it with us on the
officially ends at
outside.
5:30,
Okay.
so,
Yeah, it's past 5:30.
yeah.
Okay.
Have to ask this, does anyone else want to make public comment? Who hasn't already, there's only one person in the room who hasn't. No, okay. Any objections to adjournment?
So
Going
moved.
once, going twice, we're adjourned.
Done.